So I've been playing around and I've learned something that I kind of have always known or always assumed, but hadn't back to back tested. I got this RockShox 350 spring on the Bomber CR. So this all started with the Olin's experiment, the Olin's test and messing around. So here's a group of the springs that I ran on, not the Olin's. I only ran the Olin's springs on the Olin's. Oops, we're tangled. But on the Bomber, I've run all these springs. So all these springs will work on the Bomber. They fit. Whereas on the Olin's, the Fox springs are too narrow on the internal diameter to fit around this body. So you have to run Olin's springs or RockShox springs on an Olin's, or Cane Creek spring would work. The Onyx, not the Onyx, the DVO spring I believe would work. So there are options. But the Fox is only good for the Fox shocks, as far as I know. So anyway, what I've learned is 350. It seems like the best setup I've gotten with the coil. This coil has the high-speed rebound preset is too fast. So there's too little damping in the initial, like the beginning stroke rebound. The beginning of that rebound stroke, the high-speed rebound, is too free. So I always find myself having to run slow on the rebound or too soft a spring. So the best case scenario is this 343 from Olin's. This thing feels like probably a 375 Fox, just under a 400 Fox. This 400 Fox feels pretty much the same, more or less identical to the RockShox 350. 400 Fox, 350 RockShox are pretty much identical for sag and ride height and performance on the trail and the same setup parameters that I end up at when I'm setting it up for the same feeling. So slow on the rebound, 7 to 8 clicks of low speed compression, usually 8, and very little preload, as little preload as possible. 365 Olin's is just a little too tall, so it feels like it feels nice and supple. It's a nice spring. I think these Olin springs feel quite good. But I've had a couple of them come, or one of them came crooked, which I've made a video about that. And they warranted it, no worries. NS was straight onto it, so that was cool. But yeah, check your springs for, it was like a banana. The spring was like a banana. But the 365 feels like, it feels very similar to this 350. It feels very similar to this RockShox 350, and a little stiffer than a Fox 400. So the Olin's 365 is a little stiffer than a Fox 400. Then we got the 425. The Fox 425 feels maybe a little stiffer than this 365. Little bit stiffer. Yeah, probably a good couple of pounds stiffer. Yeah, a good 10 pounds. Now this 388, actually this 388 feels like this 425 for sure. So yeah, 425, Olin's 388, and then the 365 is probably like it might be close to the 400, just a little stiffer than the 400. It's probably the same actually. Thinking about it, it's probably the same. It's about the same. So 365 Olin's if you got a Fox shock, and 400 was perfect. And the Olin's is another issue with the yeah, that's what I spoke about it in the review. But the bladder pressure, that my friend's is definitely low as well. His bladder pressure is low, so it's quite free, and you know, you run a fair bit of compression to get it working and get some support in there. Whereas you pump it up to their recommended. I had a shop do it. You don't do it yourself. You get it nitrogen charged. We went 12 bar, 10 bar, 9 bar, 10 bar, 12 bar, 9 bar, and 9 bar was where it started performing. Anything over that, and it was just too much compression, so it was just chattery everywhere. Great on just deep, like boom, big compressions, boom, 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 like one after the other compressions, killer. But everywhere in between that, where you're looking for grip and suppleness and efficiency, it's not really good. Like, it just catches on things and slows you down. So yeah, but anyway, that's my little spring experiment that I've, you know, obviously it's only at the confines of what we've tested right here, but use that to extrapolate. The 350 RockShoxes are about, or the RockShox springs are about 50 pounds lighter written than the Fox springs for the same force resistance. And the Olins are in line with the RockShox, but again, not in line with the closer to the RockShox than they are the Fox. They're a little stiffer. Now this says a 365 for that 350. Yeah. So they're probably in line with the RockShox. Yeah. That 365 is a 350 RockShox, or a 400 Fox. So I hope that made sense. If it didn't, just watch it again. But yeah, have a think about it. It's more to it. Like, I'll get a coil. It's heaps simple. There's more to it than you think, and it can be time consuming and it can be expensive. So that's a $200 spring. That's a $150 spring. $150 spring. $60 spring. $60 spring. $150 spring. So yeah, have a think about it. Olins only do the $150 springs. Fox do your cheap springs and your expensive springs. So these are lighter than these, quite a bit lighter. And RockShox only do the one style unless you go as a SA or race only springs, whatever it is, which are a bit lighter. So anyway,